This video is about encoding information. When we talked about your working memory and your long-term memory, we talked about the importance of storing things securely in your long-term memory. Of course, that sounds really easy, but it's really not easy. So I want to give you some strategies today to help you to do that a little bit better. What you're actually doing when you're putting something in your working memory is you're sort of inventing a code for it, for your brain to be able to find it later. We call it encoding. The other thing that you're doing is making links in your brain between that piece of information and the other bits of information that you already know. If you think about an example that you might have learnt from science in Key Stage 3, you might have learnt the colours of the rainbow by remembering it as that strange word Roy G. Biv, or you might have remembered it by using the phrase Richard of York gave battle in vain. What you're doing there is that you're giving your brain a sort of code which then enables you to access the right information, which order the colours come in later when you need it. The first thing to say about this, of course, would be that you need to understand the information before you can really learn it. So if you find that you're trying to remember something that you don't understand, you need to go back to your teachers, back to your work, and try and get to the stage where you understand it first. Then you can put it securely into your long-term memory. What I want to do in this video is give you some more strategies and techniques that you could use to do that. Here's an example from science or maths. Say you wanted to learn a formula or a way of working out a formula. Get yourself a revision card and on one side write an example question using that formula. On the back of the revision card, write out your complete strategy, your workings out for that, doing that whole question in sequence, annotated with some notes. Then you can use that revision card to test yourself on whether you remember how to do that type of problem. You can turn over to where you've got the question and then check that you can go through the process and get the right answer. As you build these up over time, you'll have a bank of different types of questions that you can then use to check your recollection, your remembering those particular strategies and techniques. It works really well in maths where you've got different sorts of problems that you need to solve. At the end of it, you'll have a series of revision cards with all the different types of problems completely solved, and you can keep going back and checking over them. An example from English might be that you need to learn the meaning of a word, or you might need to learn a particular quote. So the way to do that would be, again, maybe to have a revision card with the word on one side and the meaning on the other side. Or you might get somebody to test you. You might, particularly with the quotes, cover up the quote, try and write it out, and then go back and check. Writing things by hand can be a really good way of remembering them as well. So don't always go to the computer to type things up. Use handwriting, because that can be a really effective first step in helping to get things into your long-term memory. Some examples from learning things like lists in languages. You might do the strategy of write, cover, repeat and check. And then in languages, of course, you've got the extra step where you need to say it first. So you speak and then write, cover it up, try to repeat it and then check. If you do that with a series of words, then over time you will start to get them into your long-term memory. This is a really good example of a website where you can make revision cards to test yourself. It's called Quizlet, and you can do all sorts of different things using these revision cards once you've done the first step of putting the information into Quizlet. So it will give you revision cards where you've got the question on the front and the answer on the back, for example. It will give you exercises where you need to find the right word, all sorts of different things to help you with your revision. The last thing to say about this, of course, would be that you can't leave it to the last minute. All of these strategies are ones that you need to start using early on in your courses so that you build up your knowledge and your recollection over time. If you remember with the diffuse thinking, you need to allow time for your diffuse thinking to make the connections between ideas, and this will only happen over time. So start now with your revision cards and with your strategies to help you learn things, and by the end you'll be really, really successful.